Welcome back to the MMA Creators Podcast, episode number 75. Now, we mark this one with what was last night a pretty significant main event, one we have been talking about for months on end in anticipation. And I have to say, results-wise, I think it lived up to the hype. Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway was, of course, the matchup in question. The Spaniard with a show-stopping knockout over a man who, let's not forget, has never been knocked out, if I'm not mistaken, in his UFC career. So, pretty big statement there. What were your initial thoughts on that one?
Not only never been knocked out, but technically never even been knocked down.
What about the Gaethje fight? Did he not do that one knock out?
Technically,
I don't want to be that guy.
The statistics, no.
Well, there you go. All the more impressive. And I'll let you just say your piece, but I feel like I have to mention when we recorded the in-person episode the other week, I did say, and again, this is chiming back into what you've said before, I bring it up so many times about that feeling of someone having their moment or it being their time and just in their ascendancy is the phrase I think I like to use a little bit more. And I said that was the case with Ilia Topuria, and I said Ilia Topuria would knock him out. And I said it would happen later than it did, which if anything makes it a lot more impressive. But that was really that first time we saw Max take a shot and feel afraid. Before he got knocked down, he took that big overhand right down the middle that sent him, taking a few steps backwards. And I feel like that was the first time, and I know Felder and a couple of the other commentators picked up on that, the first time he'd really been stunned. And then, only it just so happened that moments later, we saw that finishing sequence with a picture-perfect left hand that would put anyone out cold, not just Max Holloway. So, thoroughly impressed. I thought, for me, it was always a case of he has 25 minutes to find that shot, and it was never going to be a matter of if, it was going to be a matter of when. And it ended up being exactly that.
Yeah, there's just so many impressive things that you can say about Ilia Topuria. The fact that he's 27 years of age, the fact that he's just put arguably the two greatest featherweights of all time out cold, back to back. I think that puts a nail in the coffin for Fighter of the Year. We can have that conversation in a second.
Just throwing that one in there.
It's not even a hot take, in my opinion. I don't know if that's even debatable to a certain extent. However, going back to the performance, I think it, in hindsight, obviously we don't have the power of that when we're judging the fights. The way that I was split down the middle, going back and forth, and how I saw this fight playing out, pretty much everything I saw happening in regards to successful moments from either fighter, it was there, right? Technically on the scorecards, Max was down 2. I don't know if I had that.
It was close rounds. I don't think you can be mad about either, because they were very close. It depends on what you valued more. Because for me, I think Ilia landed the bigger shots, right? And we knew that going in. But obviously Max is more of a volume striker, so we come to expect that. But I wasn't mad about the scorecards seeing that in hindsight. Personally.
Sure. I don't think it was crazy it was 2-0, put it that way. No. Just maybe when I was watching, thought, okay, maybe he'll nick that one. Max was doing a good job for the most part, right? He was circling out of danger well, taking the center, using the longer range strikes, using a lot of kicks and teeps down the middle. I thought that he was probably going to have success with that. One thing that we have to bring up, that did a breakdown on this a while ago, and something that isn't spoken about enough with Ilia Topuria is the calf kicks are so heavy. They're so heavy, and I think it was 2 or 3 in that Max...
I think it was the first one, right?
Quite
buckled
possibly.
him, didn't it? Yeah, it might have been. I could be wrong there, but there was that significant one that really buckled him and put him onto one foot for that moment. And it just makes you realise every facet of this guy, offensively, he's throwing to put you out. It doesn't matter if it's a leg kick. He's looking to finish the fight with that one shot. And that's the mark of what makes him so successful, because he has 25 minutes, as I said, to find that shot. And it always just feels like an inevitability because he is so clinical and dangerous with his shots. He will always find you. And the statistics show, I don't know how many finishes he has. It's definitely more than he has been to decision. So I think the only time he has been to a decision, if I'm not mistaken, was on his debut, which was on short notice. I could be wrong there, but I believe that. And Josh Emmett, of course, who somehow survived that when probably 9 out of the 10 men probably wouldn't. So credit to him for that one. But yeah, again, it proves the point, right? He's a danger for every second of every fight. And he's one of those fighters where the championship rounds favor him because he can set that pace and his power will always be there. It rarely diminishes later on, even as we've seen him go into those deeper waters. He doesn't really let up in terms of how hard he's throwing. So
I think the reason for that as well is because he doesn't really do too much else. He calf kicks and then he sets up his hands with that, and he doesn't miss a lot. He doesn't miss a lot, and he doesn't throw too much unnecessary volume. So he has this ability to pretty much sit down on most of his punches because not only is his output not crazy high, but his efficiency is so high within those techniques that it isn't requiring a lot of energy because he's so well balanced, because he's always in the right range typically for his hands. He's not overextending too much. So super impressive. And I think, like you said, once he hit him with that right hand, I think Max realized, okay, this is a different person to anyone I've faced before, which is impressive when you think about the people that he's been in there with and the firepower that they've had. Even Dustin Poirier, right? Dustin Poirier is one of the hardest hitters, if not the hardest hitting lightweights we've ever seen. I believe he's got the most knockouts of that division. Both hands, heavy hands as well.
Very.
And he couldn't get him. He couldn't get him to respect the power like Max did with Ilia. And like you said, when the left hand landed, it was just beautiful. And it was an inevitability. And I think when you speak about inevitabilities, one inevitability was that Conor McGregor was going to start chirping up for this very reason, right? To have these conversations. But the reason I bring this up is just because I want to get your take on it. I listened to a couple of post-fight live streams and pieces of content and whatnot, and a lot of people, well-respected people, were saying about how this was the fight to make. And I want to know in what flipping world.
God, don't even.
Let me say one thing, and I want to throw it over to you. This is all I want to say on this. I just need to get off my chest. In what world, number one? I am always the biggest Conor fan. Put my hand up, try and get him in there with everyone. Let's get him back on track. Yeah, all of that. Big fan of that. In what world is this possible? Yes, this is a big fight. At what weight class? At what weight class? 145? Don't think so. Don't think so. UFC hate catchweights, and they hate catchweights even more if there's a belt on the line. Ilia doesn't have
BMF
the BMF
catchweight?
belt. He doesn't have the BMF belt, whether you like it or not. So my question to that is, in what world? But what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I've always said, every time we speak on here about potential fights and whether what's right or wrong, it's always a matter of opinion, right? And to me, I'm someone, if I'm making fights, I'm going off principle over, people getting undeserved shots, which is, unfortunately, in my opinion, what we see far too much of in the UFC. And I think that couldn't be exemplified more than a potential fight with Conor McGregor fighting Ilia Topuria, no matter the weight class. You got two guys on the complete opposite end of their careers and general arcs. One's going up, the other one is going down with no signs of a sort of redemption arc in any way, shape, or form. So for me, it doesn't make sense. But I'd be lying to myself if I said I wouldn't be watching. And a lot of times that's what it comes down to. That's why we see these fights get made. It's because they sell, because they're entertaining in the build-ups. And at the end of the day, fight-wise, it's exciting too. One of those guys is getting finished. Let's not. I'm only entertaining the idea. I personally wouldn't want it out of principle. I think there's far more deserved and interesting matchups that you can make. Makhachev was the big name I've been hearing. A little bit too early for me. I'm not going to say next. I don't think Ilia, in terms of his record and pedigree, deserves that yet. But I think it will be, again, like I said, the way he fights, an inevitability. He's that good. He will probably rack up another 2-3 title defenses, in my opinion, with ease. I think he'll knock out Volkanovski come the new year if we see that happen again. I would be very confident in that happening. As much as I love Volk and as much as you do it too, I think that's a pretty fair and safe prediction to make at this rate. And I don't know who you'd throw him in after that. Arnold Allen's in circulation there. Lerone Murphy's just had a good win. So we'll see what happens with those guys. But the reality is Makhachev is going to be there and likely will stay as the lightweight champion by the time we see those two collide. Because I think they're the two biggest names in the sport right now outside of Alex Pereira. Those are like the holy trinity, right? You put those two against each other, it's selling like hotcakes. And it's a legacy fight. It actually means something. Prevalent to right now, if you're comparing it to someone against Conor McGregor, that fight doesn't really mean anything in the grand scale of legacies when you're talking about these guys 10, 15 years after they've done, in my opinion, after they've done their careers and they've retired, the fight with Makhachev, a win over him, that's something you'd be talking about years after he's hung up the gloves. So that's why I want to see it. And that goes for both dudes, both ways.
Yes and no. Yes and no, because if you fight Conor McGregor, doesn't matter at what point, doesn't matter how, doesn't matter when, where, it is legacy more than anything else. So I think,
I don't know if I can say that anymore.
Of course it is. Come
Yeah,
on,
but it's
let's
always
be
going to have the
realistic.
asterisk by it, isn't it? You're like, oh, he beat a washed up Conor McGregor. It's like,
Sure,
let's say,
but everyone puts
again,
an
I'm going to the
asterisk on
extreme here, but
everything.
this is very extreme comparison. But if you look at when Tito knocked out Chuck Liddell when he's, in the third fight, when, Chuck was, how many years out the game and, rap in his 40s even, so maybe even older than that, I'm not entirely sure. That fight happened, but you don't place any value upon it because one guy had his foot 2 feet out the door for years. So it doesn't really mean anything that Tito got a win there. So I'd say, obviously to a lesser extent, but still the concept is there that the win doesn't hold as much value if you beat Conor McGregor now, because it's not the Conor McGregor of old. It's not the one we used to know, the one that pioneered the sport, the one that was knocking out Jose Aldo inside 13 seconds. It's not the same guy. So that's, again, I don't think you're going to be sitting here talking about how Ilia Topuria knocked out McGregor and it was like legacy defining in 10, 15 years. A win over Makhachev, in my opinion, people are going to be talking about that far more, like in this moment in time. If you make that fight now,
it just depends. I guess it depends what sort of legacy we're talking. Are we talking about pound for pound skill wise and what he done against the best fighters, or are we talking the biggest star? Because that's the conversation you have now, right? That's the conversation you have right now with Ilia Topuria is star power, and we're in this lull, maybe the wrong word, but we're in this period where it doesn't feel like we really have that many stars in the UFC, right? We've had the shine of a couple of champions.
That's a statement right there. I don't know if I agree with you anymore. I probably would have said that a year or two ago. But come on. I mean, Ilia Topuria and Alex Pereira,
comparatively to the last 20 years.
Well, of course, but no one's going to compare to McGregor.
That's not what I'm saying.
It's not a fair. I don't think it's a fair.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying across the board, we talk about star power in different divisions. It's nowhere near the last 20 years. And I'm not just talking, Conor McGregor being active. I'm talking across the board. And even if you look at people who have had that star power and that attraction over the last few years, as much as they're still beloved, and of course they are still well known in the sport, they've been beaten or knocked out or multiple losses. And it just feels like we're in this weird transition phase where, sure, there are stars. Of course, we've got Alex Pereira and Ilia Topuria there. But if we look back on generations before, through the roster, no, absolutely not.
I don't know. I feel like you're being a bit harsh there. I do. I think that's a bit unfair. I mean, speaking of stars, I'm going to have to use a segue here. And this is someone who's not necessarily a champion yet, but for many, and I'm going to say the word again, it feels like an inevitability, is the man helming the co-main event of Saturday night, Khamzat Chimaev, who, when we broke this fight down, the general consensus we had, I said, and if I remember, you were mostly in agreement, was it was a case of two tails. It's whether Rob can survive the first couple of rounds and then go on to take over late, or Chimaev would dominate early. And I actually think you got this one to a T, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't you say he'd win by submission early? I could be wrong. I said he'd knock him out in the first or second round, and that wasn't far off the truth because we saw him set a pace that he's done to everybody. And I said if he can do it to Kamaru Usman, and I don't like to use MMA math too often, but he can definitely do it to Robert Whittaker too. And he did exactly that, if not more effectively. And I was thoroughly impressed. Honestly, it was domination. I was holding out hope that Rob would sort of survive the early sort of moments, but it was just one-way traffic, really. From that first takedown attempt, it was just a pace that was oppressive. And we've yet to really see a man in a 25-minute fight go into those championship rounds with him. We haven't. I think by definition, we haven't. And that's something which for now remains a question mark. And as long as it does, I don't see anyone beating Khamzat Chimaev, to be honest with you. If he's able to enforce his will and do what he wants to everyone in front of him in those early stages, it doesn't matter how good your cardio is because he's too good. and you pit him against Dricus du Plessis, who really is an absolute enigma of the sport, one of the weirdest fighters we've ever seen. I still can't pick it because I'm tired of doubting that man, and I've made that mistake too many times now. But that's a conversation for another day. I want to know your thoughts on that performance.
I said a long time ago when this fight was first booked, tell me if I'm wrong here, if Khamzat Chimaev went out and had a statement performance, he will fight for the title next. I did not care whether they had soft announced the Strickland du Plessis rematch. I knew it to be factual that if Chimaev went out there, had an impressive performance, he was fighting for the title next. He had an impressive performance, in fact, an emphatically impressive performance, and I now almost guarantee that he's fighting for the title next. I listened to the interview of Dana White, and he got asked in a press conference, and he's so hypocritical in these press conferences, it's always funny, so I just like listening to them. Obviously, they never make a fight on a Saturday night, only on Tuesdays. It's a lie. They change this every single week. Sometimes they make the fight, sometimes they don't. It's just whatever's easiest to answer in that time. And guess what? I would do the exact same. So it's not
for sure, yeah.
It's not an attack, but it's just a relevant point. And he said, in answer to the question of is Strickland still fighting for the title next, he sort of grinned, smiled, and went, well, we'll have to figure that out on Tuesday. And I was thinking, oh my
not.
goodness.
And he's not, and I don't blame him either. I agree. I mean, like, it's like, I'll put it to you, right? And myself. Who would you rather see fight Dricus du Plessis? It's a simple answer. For me, it really is. I don't want to see Sean Strickland jab and teep his way over 25 minutes after claiming he's going to drag, bring an absolute war on the press conference and start saying all sorts of things and never back it up. I'm sorry, maybe some people might think that's a bit harsh, but I stand by it.
That's a bit harsh.
No one wants to see that shit. Let's just say it how it is. We want to see Khamzat Chimaev screaming in as he's about to walk out.
Not anymore.
What do you mean? He was screaming.
To be fair, he's still sprinting.
He's doing a bit of screaming. Maybe not the same level.
Still sprinted, yeah.
I want to see him charging into the octagon like he did against the Leech, and I want to see him standing off against Dricus du Plessis and running him down in those opening seconds. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see Sean Strickland pitter-patter his way to a win or a loss. I just don't. And I'm fairly certain you don't either. And I feel like I can speak for most of the MMA fan base when I say that. But
I like watching Sean Strickland fight, to be honest. I do like watching him fight. But saying that, of course the more compelling matchup is Chimaev DDP. It's a no-brainer. It's not even remotely close. Because I am the worst person to ask this question to, because I hate rematches. I would happily never see a rematch ever again, to be perfectly honest, except from very, very certain circumstances. Like
I don't know about that one.
Super specific circumstances, which I believe actually come around in about once every 5 years, for me personally.
Wow, really?
I'm talking that sort of level.
I don't know if I can back that. I always say I'm usually in agreement with you, but that one, I don't know.
Yeah, this is personal. I'm not saying everyone else has to agree with it. I'm just telling you how I think. How I think is I hate rematches. I honestly would always rather see a fresh matchup unless there was no physical way of avoiding. A good example is something like Max Volk the second time, right? You have someone who's incredibly...
That was my example I was going to use.
Incredibly dominant. You have someone like Volk who has then been incredibly dominant, beat the champion, close fight, a lot of controversy, they run a rematch, cool. No problem against it, because there's not really anyone else for there to face, but that happens so rarely. This is not one of those
rematches, just to clarify.
Correct.
I feel like, okay, cool, right, good. Then I'm mostly with you then, yeah.
Correct. All right. Earned rematches down the road, sure, fine. I like a narrative coming down the road. You think of Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman. That was a rematch when they fought in Salt Lake City.
Good shout.
So I like rematches. I hate instant rematches. That's what I need to say, right? I'd rather see other things play out first. That's my biggest bugaboo with boxing, is they always have the rematch clause. I think it completely...
Hate that. Yeah.
And we don't have this in MMA as such, but when we're perpetuating this sort of storyline, it happens more frequently, and I'm not a fan of it. So, yeah, I would rather that Dricus fight. And also, you talk about Khamzat Chimaev going in there, walking anyone down and manhandling anyone. He's not manhandling DDP.
Yeah,
He's
he's
not.
strong, isn't he?
He's
Again,
not.
I was more being hopeful when I said that. I'm not necessarily saying that's going to happen.
I'm saying this with conviction because I'm all aboard the Chimaev hype train. I was a new fan when he came onto the scene, so I've seen every bit of this man's rise from the very, very start. So I'm all aboard. Don't get it twisted. But I don't see anyone, let me be clear on this, anyone at 185 manhandling Dricus du Plessis. Beating him? Quite possibly. Submitting him? Possibly. Possibly. Unlikely, but possibly. Manhandling? Don't see it. Don't see it. Just don't.
I think we're really, again, I think you can say this for a lot of matchups with anyone who's facing Chimaev, it's a case of, again, surviving the early rounds, because Dricus du Plessis, as strained as he looks sometimes, there's a reason he's a new mythical fighter. Oxygenated du Plessis is a mythical fighter for a very good reason, because since he had his nose fixed, he's set a very good pace into championship rounds.
Wrong.
And he doesn't slow. And that's, again, just like Robert Whittaker, it's the same. There's a point there, right? If you're facing Chimaev, if Dricus, who I'd say is far more durable than Rob is, can survive those early rounds, which I give him much more chance in doing so, again, maybe it's crazy to say, but I think it's his fight to lose. I don't know. But that's what makes it exciting. And I guess all this discussion points to the fact that it's a fight we want to see over a Sean Strickland rematch. It is, right?
You're telling me that Dricus du Plessis Chimaev doesn't look like a slightly bigger, quite literally in size, Gilbert Burns Chimaev? I think they're very similar people.
Yeah.
Why are they not similar people?
Yeah.
Not the most refined striking, but effective. Obviously, Gilbert Burns' jiu-jitsu is lights out, but Dricus du Plessis, I'm not comparing their jiu-jitsu, but I'm saying it's effective. It's effective and it's good. It's MMA, right? We're not in the gi. We're not doing the flipping Pan Ams. We're not doing none of that. We're in MMA with 4-ounce gloves, and you got some behemoth on you, like Dricus du Plessis. Just like smothering your mouth and elbowing you.
Oh,
like,
don't even.
The geezer's a grinder, And I know for a fact that if they were in the training room together, their training rounds would be phenomenal. And I know that there would be a lot of people that had watched them saying, oh, I don't know where this goes. Chimaev can... I think this is the best fight to make at middleweight right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even a question, is it? I know you've got other names floating around there. Guys like Caio Barao, middleweight, really, there's a sort of queue. I'm not, this is not what I'm saying. I'm just posing the question, all right? I'm just saying, there's a queue of men, that sounds weird, of people
really
stacking up, wanting to fight for the middleweight throne, right? There is. And a lot of them can really put their hands up and say, I deserve a shot more than this guy. But I think, as you said, if we're coming back to a balance of principle and entertainment value, there's no other name than Khamzat Chimaev. He is a massive star. And the only thing from him stopping him from reaching that top level is that 10.5 pounds of gold over his shoulder. And if he gets that, you could very much give him the case that he's leapfrogging Alex Pereira within that name value and being worldwide renowned, right? Maybe that's premature to say. I don't know. I'm just throwing the question out there.
No, it's not.
I mean, he's huge, isn't he? Huge name. So it's in the UFC's interest to make the fight. It is, truly. And for me, it is a no-brainer. And speaking of no-brainers, again, I'm going to have to chuck in another segment. I'm on fire today. Magomed Ankalaev next in line to fight Alex Pereira after beating Alexander Rakic. I'm going off principle. He's boring, but he deserves it. Who else? No one. No one at light heavyweight deserves that shot. Come off it. Like, who? Give me a name then. If you're going to say Borov, give me a name.
I'm saying Borov because it's literally...
He is dull.
I'm just going to have to get into the rant. I'm just going to have to get into a rant.
Do it.
Because it's so frustrating going on my socials and every social media post for the last couple of weeks or a month even was talking about how Alex Pereira was supposedly ducking or running away from Magomed Ankalaev.
No.
My question was always the same. This was my question, right? Why? Why would he do that? Why would that make sense? Where have you created that narrative? well, he's the worst matchup for Alex Pereira. No, he's not. No, he's not.
Not even, yeah.
Where have you got that narrative from? Oh, he can wrestle. No, he doesn't.
He
No,
never
he
uses
doesn't.
it.
Show me when he's wrestled someone of a
He
high
doesn't,
level.
innit?
He's never done it. He's never done it to someone of a higher level. It's never happened, right? So, yes, he's got a couple of submissions. Yes, he's from Russia and he can grapple a little bit. But let's not sit here and act like he's a nightmare matchup for Alex Pereira, because I've never seen anything to suggest that.
I agree.
watched his fight with Rakic, sorry. Close fight, competitive fight. Rakic obviously loses, and it's not a debatable decision. But it's a fight where it was close. It was competitive. It was back and forth. It was, okay, he won that round, but it wasn't convincing. And that's the problem with Magomed Ankalaev, right? He speaks a big game online, and he's got a fantastic record. And he's put together a phenomenal win streak. All of these things are tremendously relevant. However, you need to take some notes from Khamzat Chimaev, because Khamzat Chimaev, on the flip side, does all the wrong things. He misses weight. He gives it online and he's ill. He pulls out of fights. He does all of that, right? But when he steps in the octagon, he finishes Bobby Knuckles in the first round. You have to have performances like that to get these lucrative fights, to be a no-brainer to be put in there. Yes, you've got this crazy win streak. Yes, you should be fighting for the title, but should-be's are not what the UFC work on. They work on name value.
Exactly.
So, yes, we're in this position at the moment in 205 where there is literally no one else to fight, because Pereira's either beaten them or it doesn't make sense. So, yes, he will fight for the title next, but I guarantee flipping to you, if it was a case like even middleweight, for example, he wouldn't be fighting for the belt next. I guarantee it.
No, I agree. I agree.
Last thing I'll say, everyone again, he's ducking, the UFC hate him, blah, 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 all of this weird narrative. Okay, let me explain to you exactly why that happened. He fought for the belt. If everyone seemed to forget that he actually had a flipping title fight against Jan Blachowicz. It wasn't a great fight. It went to a draw. Many people thought he should have lost. It wasn't that exciting. The crowd were booing. People were leaving halfway through. Even the commentary were mentioning it. That's what happened when he fought for the title. And also, just painting the obvious, doesn't speak English. So it's not as if the UFC are clambering towards that anyway. Because he doesn't have...
I can't. I don't think you can use this as a point, because I think in a lot of ways, people who don't speak English often have more success in doing so. Namely Charles Oliveira. Namely Pio
That's a lie. That's a lie. Of course it is. Of course it is.
They're more exciting because they're just good to watch, aren't they? Yeah.
This is my point, right?
Yeah, fair point.
It's not that. My point is he doesn't speak English, therefore they don't want him as a champion. My point is he isn't that charismatic. His fighting style isn't super entertaining. Or at least his fights are not super entertaining. He's got a lot going for him. My point is just painting a picture of why this narrative annoyed me a bit. The last thing I'll say is Charles Oliveira, Alex Pereira, Petr Yan. These are people that don't need to say a word in a lick of English, but they'll go out there and put on spectacular performances. So there's a big, big difference between an Ankalaev and an Alex Pereira, an Ankalaev and a Charles Oliveira because of the English. My point is it's just another reason of why the UFC are thinking, this is a tough sell. Like, this is a tough sell. Of course it is. How do you sell it? Like, you sell it with some highlights over Johnny Walker.
You can't.
Everyone's got highlights over Johnny Walker.
Well, you sell it with Alex Pereira. I think if there's anything a silver lining there, you sell it with Alex Pereira.
No, if he wins.
Because we spoke a few weeks ago, and I said that, when they did UFC 307, it was like, for me, it was the first time I've seen a fighter replicate that sort of Conor McGregor structure of headlining a pay-per-view and the UFC filling it with, let's be honest, subpar fights below it. Yeah. That's the mark of a true star in the UFC for me. And if that is a silver lining, it's there, right? Alex Pereira can sell that fight by himself. It doesn't matter who he's fighting. If it is Magomed Ankalaev and he is boring and he isn't interesting to listen to or watch, it doesn't really matter because Alex Pereira is going to bring the fight to him. And hopefully, I'm kind of crossing my fingers when I say that, draw the dog out of him. And I think there's a very good possibility that does happen. And if I had to press you for a prediction on that fight, because it does seem now like it's like the 10th time I've said it, an inevitability, I personally think Alex Pereira beats him. I think he knocks him out.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Well, what are you going to do? Go have a kickboxing match with Alex Pereira? Good luck for 25 minutes. Like, good luck. Good luck. Like, has that gone well for anyone else? Not really. What have I
No.
seen from Uncle? I'm not saying he can't win. I'm not saying he can't go out there and
No.
beat him. Of course, like he's put together a stupid win streak and he's good. It's like it sounds like I'm hating. I'm not. He's obviously good. My point is just this narrative I've heard online is just wound me up because I'm thinking, what are people seeing where they believe this is a one-sided matchup? Like, I don't understand it. I believe it's gone. I believe Magomed Ankalaev's fallen into the category of when people have the Russian flag next to their name and they have a long win streak. And I
There's
honestly
too many of them, man. There's too many of them. I don't like it. I feel like they just spawn in. Do you know what I mean? You just suddenly there's another Ov or an Ev or an Iv with he's about 15-0 with the Don in the Russian flag fighting with a very boring style. It seems to be all too
But
common these days.
if
But
you're an Umar Nurmagomedov, right, I'm all down for that. I'm all down for watching someone flipping have fun performances, want to be active, go out and fight someone before. Yeah, I like all of that. You know, I like all of that. But with this Ankalaev, I've heard nothing but flipping.
Or
this geezer's been
Nightmare Champion. I keep getting recommended that video on YouTube. It's like the top, like every division's like Nightmare Champion, and just the thumbnail is just everywhere with the with a giant gold belt over his shoulder. And I don't think anyone could disagree.
He's going to be champion, isn't he? At some point, that
don't say that because you're going to manifest it. I don't want that to happen.
It's inevitability, in the words of Leo Cooper.
Yeah, true. Well, I think Topuria would knock him out. But that's a question for another day. Probably sooner than we think. Actually,
I've actually got a question for you on the Topuria one.
Shoot.
I know people listen. Don't react to this. How every troll is going to react to this. Think about this.
Okay. All right.
Ilia Topuria, Aljamain Sterling.
I did see this conversation floating around today, actually, on the MMA sphere, if you want to call it. Style-wise, I like it. Are you suggesting to me that Aljamain Sterling is the man to beat him? Is that what you're insinuating?
I don't think I'm sitting here saying he's the one that we should send to the front line and he's the only one who's going to be able to do a job.
Soldier. it's like a death sentence, honestly. Walking the plank fighting that man.
I do believe Aljo can beat anyone at that division, in that division.
Oof.
And I don't know why he wouldn't be able to beat Ilia Topuria. I don't think it's
a matter of
favourable,
survival, though, isn't it?
And I don't think it's percentage-wise. I wouldn't sway towards him.
Yeah.
But do I think it's an impossibility that he could get to him? He could close his distance down with his kicks, and then get on a single leg and just get to a body lock, and then win a round, and then do that twice, and then maybe he's done it a third time and he's won a fight.
Yeah, that's true.
Crazy.
Yeah,
why
that's
is that
not crazy?
He's definitely stronger than Ilia Topuria.
And he's probably the best backpack in the UFC, isn't he? He really is.
Yeah,
I don't think there's
sure.
a little better than him, and a few better than him at all, really. I mean, people don't understand how sapping body triangles are. When you're in that locked up position, it's basically a round wrap, right? That you're not going to get out of that body triangle 9 times out of 10. I know Dustin Poirier actually did it against Makhachev in recent memory. I do remember that, but those are few and far between, and especially against a man as distinguished in that regard as Aljamain Sterling. You're not escaping him in those positions. So yeah, it's definitely a possibility. It's a big if, though. That is a very big if.
He's big at 45, though. He is big at 45. And whilst a lot of people are not going to have glaring advantages on Ilia Topuria, people are going to have some advantages on him. And I think the one that Aljo would have on him is definitely a strength advantage. Now, that is much less than hands, low kicks, punch power. Yeah, sure. I understand all of that. I don't think it's a favourable matchup.
The man is terrifying, isn't he? Jesus. I'm sorry. That right hand is just... He's just got stone. I mean, I know Poatan is the man with the hands of stone, quite literally. But I'm sorry, man. Ilia Topuria. I remember I spoke a while ago. There was like few men I'd rather like not fight than Khalil Roundtree and Wheelie, another man who fought the other night, Kennedy and Njokubu, just terrifying individuals in just the way they throw their punches.
Terrible
I know that's a very
options.
Yeah, I mean they're not that terrible. They're scary as hell. Corey Sandhagen was another one. Ilia Topuria probably tops all of those. Are they? Corey Sandhagen is violent. He is a violent man.
And Corey Sandhagen are the people that you believe are the scariest in the UFC. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
No, they're not. But like in terms of like, there's not a lot of people who I would You know what I'm saying? Like, I would not want to step in the octagon with them compared to a lot of other UFC fighters. Is what I'm getting
can
at.
think of so many more people that
Listen.
I would want to step into the octagon with less than Corey Sandhagen.
Ilia Topuria is
I
one of
love
them.
the Sandman.
So do I. He's still a terrifying fighter. That flying knee, I'd be worried to
He's
getting my head
ginger,
to
first
a
and
Pez
foremost.
dispenser. He's what?
Ginger.
What's that? That's a bit harsh, isn't it?
Well, it's just intimidation factor. It's already dropped certain
Well,
levels.
yeah. Well, that doesn't mean anything when he's dropping a flying knee on you or
No, I know,
cutting you up with
but-
elbows.
But that's not happening yet. I'm walking into the
Okay,
octagon.
all
I'm
right,
just
fair
looking
enough,
at
fair
him.
enough. That's
You
a
know?
fair point. Yeah.
All right?
I'll
Fair.
let you. I'll let you take devil's advocate on that one. Yeah, I mean- All right, well, let's move away from some MMA chat because I feel like it's been a little long overdue. We dissected some of UFC 308. Obviously, there was some other fights on there. Lerone Murphy, we briefly mentioned. Of course, Shara Bullet with a beautiful
Impressive.
elbow. Very impressive. But I think there's little that needs to be said on those, in my
It
opinion.
was a double back fist.
It was
an
a double
elbow.
back fist. It was cool. Yeah, sorry. It's spinning back fist. Sorry. Again, that surprised me. That was very. I was never really that high on Shara Bullet personally. I don't know if you
True.
speak the same, but I never really feel like he had that knockout power or looked as if he was dangerous with his weapons despite his versatility. He proved me wrong, very much so, and I'm not mad about it. But yeah, let's jump into some creator stuff because, as I say, and you always say too, this is a creator podcast just as much as it is an MMA one. So, what has been going on in your working week, or even not working outside of it?
I think
You
I may be
sound
going
drained.
to Macau.
Sorry? I heard you. I'm just like, you just blindsided me with that one. Really?
Yeah, I think I may be going to Macau.
Why?
For the
Just-
UFC.
Oh, really? Who's
Yeah.
fighting on that?
I don't really know. I think
I
it's
remember that getting announced.
Petty
Jan Figueiredo.
Yeah,
Oof.
Jan Figueiredo. Yeah.
Going to China. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
China.
I've never been. I'd like to go. You been
Yeah.
before?
I have. Well,
How was it?
kind of and kind of not. I've been to Hong Kong, which I don't believe is
yeah, that's
technically
that,
China.
That is not a can of worms I won't even get remotely close to.
I
We're
don't.
not doing geopolitics on this.
I don't know how to
channel.
navigate that one, but yeah, I've been to Hong Kong. Hong Kong's a great place. Macau's not too far from it. Lon's making his UFC debut, so I believe
Oh,
I'm
of
gonna go
course
there.
he is, isn't he? Yes, I knew it. I was about to say, what's the connection here? Because you're not just going to go to UFC Macau on a whim. There's got to be some sort of reasoning behind it. And I knew I remembered it from
don't-
somewhere.
I don't like watching the fights in person, to be honest.
I know you said that before. I'm kind of with you. I think it just depends on the crowd. Like with the UK event, I think it's different for me personally. I feel like there's always going to be that special bit of flair and panache that comes with that compared to just a regular old event. But that's a hot take, man. I think it's a privilege, though, isn't it?
For sure. Like, I
Yeah.
preface it with that. I preface
Of course,
it with
yeah.
being grateful for the experience that I've had by doing that. And I can tick that off now. But in regards to going and watching live events, doesn't do anything for me. I can almost always say that I would rather watch it in the hotel room of wherever I was staying on the TV. Almost always. In fact, I couldn't really think of a scenario if that weren't the case. Maybe if someone had a spare seat in a box and we were in the box and there was nice food there, yeah, sure. But it has the TV
Yeah, go on
also.
then.
I'd probably watch it on the TV. That hasn't been the case. But if that were the case, then yeah, maybe. But I just don't enjoy watching it in there. You can't see the fights very well. You don't get an earpiece, which gives you the commentary. So it just isn't that entertaining for me, to be perfectly honest. It really isn't. You go to a football game, even, for example, right? You can't necessarily see every intricacy, and it does look very different on TV, but you can see everything that's taking place. You could see a lot of the different positions, a lot of the different small subtleties that you can't see on TV. In the UFC, it's one of the worst sports to watch live, I actually think.
No,
And
it's true. The cage
I've
is
been to
quite debilitating in that
almost
regard.
all of the main sports, right? I've been to tennis, cricket, football, rugby, like flipping, you name it. I've been to a lot of them. UFC or MMA, I don't even want to say MMA because Cage Warriors in the O2 is better to watch MMA than the UFC. Every time I've been, undoubtedly.
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 Yeah.
It's not even close. I don't even know if anyone could ever go to a UFC event and say just on the experience, not the talent, but the experience itself is not better going to watch it in the London O2, watching Cage Warriors, than it is going to the O2 the next day on the Saturday and watching the UFC, which is what I've done. And it is infinitely better experience watching it at the mini O2 with the Cage Warriors.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So yeah,
something I was going to ask you about.
Sure.
I saw you did some. Obviously, you've been really expanding the food fighters, the realm, if that's the word to use, of food fighters as a brand and as a sort of thing, right? Let's just go with that. And I saw you did some filming with Against the Fence, right? Breezy? What's happened with that?
That was cool.
So shout out to those guys, by the way, just for the record.
Entity, maybe is the right word.
Yeah, let's go with
thing. That. Entity.
Let's go with thing. Maybe. Yeah, it seems a bit more fitting.
Yeah, I've definitely been leaning more into that. That was one of the first things that you said to me. I knew that to be true as well. I knew you were right, and I knew that was something I needed to do. So I finally sort of put in good practices to have that as more consistent. I made a new page for it. I managed to tag them and everything. So what's like happening is just more opportunities off the back of that. So Boys Against the Fence reached out a while ago actually and said they wanted to do a podcast interview. Of course, I was more than happy to do that. And then they said, why don't we do it where we cook some food and we'll get a studio and we can do it like that. And I said, okay, cool. That's a cool idea. So kind of run it as like a Food Fighters episode. So that's what we did. We went to, it was actually one of the boys' auntie's place. It was a really nice flat, actually.
Yeah,
really
it looked nice. Flat. I was a little bit jealous.
Yeah, in St Albans. it was quite a cool aesthetic. And I'm very fortunate where I have some friends, very, very close friends, that just so happen to be at the very top of their game in photography and videography. So I invited some of them down as well. So we had a full set, really. We had a full set video, like which was pretty cool. And then I chefed up made some soft shell tacos from scratch, made some steak, mango salsa, guacamole.
See, this is the problem. I feel like I have to just try. This is the problem with food stuff. I can't watch it because if I'm hungry, I'm always like, I'm literally, the Snickers, right? The Snickers thing, you're not you when you're hungry. That is me to a T. I'm a total knobhead if I haven't eaten my food. And every time I see stuff on my feed about food, it just makes me angry. I just get annoyed because I'm hungry and I just see you chefing up soft shell tacos and I just want to shut my feed. If anything, it's probably a good thing because it makes me get off Instagram, but I just have to I can't look at it,
I think it's a mindset thing with that. People always have that. I do. It winds me up.
I can't watch MasterChef, mate. I can't do it.
I'm not saying, you should watch food things when you're hungry, but what does wind me up is when people have things like that. Like, I just can't do insert anything because I've not eaten today.
I know, I'm exaggerating, obviously.
No, I know, but it does flip and annoy me when people say. I don't know why I'm just being moody about everything today. I don't know why. It just does wind me up when people always say that. But that was a really cool. That was a really cool experience, actually, to be honest. And like I said, I had a couple of the boys that were on the set were very close friends I went to uni with and whatnot as well. They were the ones running the camera. So it was cool to do that with them. And it was something we spoke about for years, doing this for years. So it was sort of a culmination of that. I think next time we do it, it will be through my own series. Obviously, that was more for them.
Yeah.
Next one will be more for my own. So I sort of set it up and run it how I would probably run it for a Food Fighters episode. But no, it was really cool. And I'm just leaning into doing more things like that, getting more experiences like that. And then, of course, just TWC, again, is just one of the main things that I've got on the agenda, right?
Toe Wrestling Championships.
Toe Wrestling Championships, yeah. So
for those uninitiated.
And if you are uninitiated, why the hell not? But the thing is with that, right, is what I'm noticing is obviously we're still just finalizing the contracts and the job role and the shares and going back and forth and whatnot. So it takes a little bit of time doing adult things like that, to be honest. It's the best way I can describe it. Adult things. But alongside that, the amount of interaction and intrigue it garners from the internet is outstanding. And I don't think you realize, and by you, I mean anyone, and including myself, how many feet related
Steady.
subsectors there are in the world. And people's mind just go to, oh, creepy foot fetishes.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is though. That's where it does go. Not me specifically. I mean, well, okay, I'm not even going to say anything else. I'm just digging a hole.
Of course, right? Because that's where everyone's minds goes. That's where there's a lot of conversation around. People have asked me a lot of questions like that. Isn't it just people that have foot fetishes that watch?
That's what people say about MMA as well.
But this is what I was about to say, right? I was about to say, well, there's two things there. No, it isn't just people with foot fetishes that watch. And number two, if you're asking me to create a sport that isn't going to attract weirdos, I will never be able to do that, because here's a little reality shock for you. There's weirdos in everything. Every sport, every discipline, every angle of the internet. So if you want me to go into a sport which is void of those, not possible. Many creeps that watch MMA, many creeps that watch football, so on and so forth.
And can do it too.
Well, there you go. There you go, right?
I mean, when you got a guy called Violent Bob Ross formerly fighting for the UFC. Do you remember him? Who then got he got done for battery, I think, and assault. So I think he took his nickname a little bit too literally.
That was
only proves the point.
That was a rogue one to bring up, Violent Bob Ross. But I do remember.
Throwback.
That was on. I think he was on Tough, right? At some point.
Yeah.
So what I was gonna say really with the toe wrestling is I just wasn't expecting as many different areas of the internet to jump out and ask. I got a message earlier from a foot clinic. There's so many different medical practices, right, that keep reaching out, where their whole page on Instagram, this person that reached out to me, their whole page on Instagram was around foot health and development, right? And it was more towards the side of a science Instagram page.
Was this the specialist you talked about on?
No,
was this another one?
No, this is my point. It's just another page.
My God,
There's
just
millions
another
of
one.
these things. There's honestly millions. It's you don't realize how prevalent this is, because it's just something that we aren't in. But you realize how many there are, and they had over 500,000 followers, and it was like, oh, we love this, and can we just collaborate the posts and things? And that got 250,000 views, and there's so many people out there that do this sort of things. It's incredible. But yeah, other than the toe wrestling and that, all pretty much the same. Business as
they're
usual.
quite big things as well. Like it sounds like that in almost a way. It only sounds like two things, but they're two very big and important things that you got to tackle, especially in those sort of. I mean, really, you're at the helm for both of them. I don't know. I think you'd be the first to say that, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, you're working in a team environment with the latter, but the principle still applies. You know, you're managing. If anything, it's a bigger challenge, right? And probably something quite new for you. Because
completely new,
yeah, exactly, right. Because up until now, obviously, the podcast, you know, there is an element of that where it's more of a cooperative effort. But with something like this, I'm going to assume this is kind of a first time thing for you, right?
And honestly, I love working in teams, and I hate working in teams.
I get that. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, you could say the same about working for yourself too. You know? I think there's drawbacks to both.
You know what I
Probably
hate?
less.
I'll tell you what I hate. I'll tell you what I hate. I feel like I'm telling you everything I hate today. I don't know why I'm in this sort of mood, but I just I'm ranting today.
Yeah.
But I just really I have found in my life that I've distanced myself as many times as possible from anything which is going to catch me up in office politics, which is going to catch me up in gossip, which is going to catch me up in bickering. I just remove myself from all of it. I hate it. And even if that comes down to sports teams, right? I go to different gyms a lot and go different places, and even silly things like, oh, there's WhatsApp group chats, and people are like, oh, do you want me to put you in a WhatsApp group chat? No, don't put me in the WhatsApp group chat. Thank you, actually. Oh, do you want to come down this day as well? No, thank you. I'll come down once a week, you know, like different things just to separate myself, because
you have the ability to do that, so why not, right?
Yeah,
like
that's
why you're not bound by you're in that position where you're not bound by anything, right?
No.
So why not? Fuck it, just do that. Yeah, do that shit. It's a privilege.
How's it been going for you?
Yeah, it's tough, you know. I can't. I realized this today, because normally today on a Sunday is when I start writing my script, or at least early stages. Sometimes I don't write a huge amount. Sometimes I write half the thing or all of it. But again, it's just another week where I'm struggling so much for ideas and just writing. I can't get into the flow of it. That's something I don't really know what needs to change because it's been like this for a month, maybe even a month and a half,
Yeah.
2 months, and I'm dragging myself over the line. Like I put the Charles Oliveira documentary out, and I spent 2 weeks making it instead. Really, I probably could have done it in one, but because it was just I couldn't find my groove for it for a lot of it. It was difficult. I was proud of it in the end, but the point still stands. Right, I'm just struggling to get back into that flow. Right, I can't do it, and I don't know what it is I need to change. There are a few things which I'm planning on, like of course working in different places. I'm looking at co-working desks. That's just more of a money thing right now in terms of that's something I need to just consider and plan out. That will probably help. But apart from that, I'm not sure. I really don't know what it is.
Oh, I know what it is.
Please, give me this wisdom right now because I'm all over the gaff. I don't honestly.
I don't
so
think
hard.
I don't think it's wisdom. I just think it's probably true.
Shoot.
I think you just need to next couple of weeks, next few weeks, next month. I think you need to go onto Skyscanner and book a one-way ticket to somewhere. That's what I think.
Yeah, I should. Yeah, I spoke about that. Again, I don't want to delve too deep into this because, well, maybe people are interested. But when I was doing my therapy session the other week, I spoke about that too, and I spoke about the conversation we had actually talking about.
They were like, "Don't listen to this more."
Yeah, like, he doesn't know what the fuck he's on about. He's completely deranged.
Listen to the paid professional, right? Only we speak when it's £70 an hour, right?
No. But she actually was in a lot of agreement. So there was a general similar sentiment there with that, right? So, I guess that supports what you said to me the other week, and I can't remember if we spoke about that on the pod or not. I don't think we did actually. But yeah, that's definitely a point to make, right? Traveling somewhere. Hence where, as I said about the co-working desk or hot desking, trying to have variation and being somewhere else, just being in a different environment. I think that's really probably the key.
You?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's stopping me. I really don't. I should just do it.
I know what's stopping you.
No, you're scaring me. You're soul reading me right now.
No,
I probably already know.
It's very obvious. Like the only thing that's stopping you is the fact that you haven't booked a ticket. Once you book the ticket, the rest does itself. Like you start sorting out your insurance, you start packing your clothes, you start getting mentally prepared, you start having a different ball game, a whole different vibe to your life is just a little bit changed. And you're in a position where you can do that. You're also in a position where you want to do that. And you're in a position where you've expressed going to do that. So the only thing that's stopping you is actually flipping. You just need to go on Skyscanner, click buy on one of the flipping one-way tickets, and then figure out the rest. And I think it really is just simple as that.
I'll just fucking go to Macau.
I see that. It's the Vegas of China, they call it.
Yeah, it does look nice to be fair, but probably a little bit too extreme for me at the moment.
Bit rogue.
I don't know, yeah.
Bit rogue.
It is a bit, isn't it? Have they done a UFC event there before?
Potentially.
Maybe once? I don't know.
Where would you go?
Again, I spoke about America. I feel like that's East Coast, maybe. I'd like to go back to New York. I went there when I was younger. I mean, I am actually going away. I'm going away in December with my family, so there's definitely an opportunity there. Maybe to just sort of check out a little bit. Stay.
Yeah. Can you not just stay?
I mean, if I wanted to, I mean, I've already got flights booked, so that's like return as well. So that would be a bit of a hassle.
But would you want to do that, or would you want to rather be back for UK? For Christmas.
Oh, well, I would miss Christmas if I stayed. So
yeah, but would that be big for you or no?
Yeah, for me, yeah.
Some people it wouldn't be. Some people it would.
No,
for
I mean,
I'm
definitely not. I'm not necessarily like if I had to, it's not the end of the world, right? But
sure.
I mean, my family would want me there. So
no,
again, but that's gonna be interesting. That's an opportunity, right? So I guess I think what I might do is that's a sort of in a way a place to test the waters because I will probably not. The only difference is I probably won't make videos while I'm out there. I'll just use this at time off, but obviously I'll still record. I'll do the pod and everything.
How long are you going out there for?
Like 2 weeks. So maybe a bit more than that. So I haven't been away with the family quite a long time actually. So that will be fun. And obviously we can definitely deliberate in terms of experience. I don't actually know where I'm going specifically. I can't remember. I need to have a look.
You gonna do a Muay Thai class out there?
Nah, maybe if there's an opportunity for it, a drop in one. Or what I might do is if there's an opportunity for one, I might just get on the mat and do whatever, like see what's happening and just
go and do a 1-to-1.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I quite like to do a class though. I feel like that's more.
No.
I don't know. No, you are those guys because I don't know. I never really had the idea of doing 1-to-1s.
Truth, I hate classes.
Really? Why?
Hate them. I don't see any point. I listen. I can sit here and tell you some benefits of them. Sure. But from my perspective,
for you though.
But for me personally, from my perspective, everything I want and how I want, there's no point in a group.
But there's
class
nothing
ever,
out of a group class you'd like, or you'd like. No. Do you not value being able to roll with different people, meeting new people?
I don't do.
You don't value that.
I don't do jiu-jitsu.
Oh, true. Well, same applies then. Sparring with.
I want to just. I don't care about sparring different people and sparring those people. I want to have a 1-to-1 attention of getting my skills better and doing fun things. When it's a group class,
that does suit you, to be fair.
Go and skip, go and stretch, go and run, go and press up.
Oh, to be fair, I'm going to say this.
Get me on the pads, let me elbow shit, and let's move on. All right?
I'm going to kind of share that same sentiment. I really, really don't like because obviously certain instructors have their own way of doing things, right? So if you do on different classes, someone's teaching the class, they're going to have a different way, a different approach. I really, really hate it when you get to the class and like, right, everyone start doing laps around the mat, roll your shoulders. Like, no, man, I'm here to do jiu-jitsu. I'll warm up. Let me flow roll to warm up. That's a good way of warming up. Not rolling my arms back and forth and doing side steps in and out 2 for 2. I can't be bothered. I'm tired of doing forward rolls and back controls. Just let me flow roll or let me just roll. Like, I hate it when people do that. Fortunately, most of my coaches don't do that, but it's such a pet peeve of mine. And I used to just sort of in uni, but then I was like, I thought it was the normal thing to do. It's dumb. It's stupid. And I think a lot of people actually agree with that. And I think there's definitely a sentiment around that changing. Just put technique first, right? Why would you waste your time doing that when you only have a certain amount of minutes with the class? You only have a certain amount of time and you're wasting it rolling around and shrimping. Just stop it, man. Just stop it. Sorry. I'm so passionate about that because it just gets on my nerves.
So it seems like you've actually agreed with me.
No. Listen, because I like group classes. I'd rather do group classes than 1-to-1s because I like the social.
Jiu-jitsu is
a
little bit different as well.
Yeah, true. Again, and that comes into perspective of me. I am a hobbyist, right? I'm a hobbyist first. Like, I'm not someone who's trying to become really, really good. Like, I want to improve and I want to get better, and there's definitely an element of that. But I go there to get my exercise in and feel better afterwards. And also so I can meet people, chat with people, have a laugh, and just train a sport that I enjoy. So it's not a case of me wanting to be the best and going to comp classes and dragging myself through deep waters like I'm in, Khabib's camp. I'm not doing that. I'm not one of those guys. But that's what I'm saying. I like the social element of it. That's what it comes down to. That's what I enjoyed when I first started doing it, the most part. So I can't really agree with that. I can back that. I mean, there's obviously a place for it, though, right? I wouldn't be opposed. Because you definitely learn more. I think you improve faster with 1-to-1s.
Exponentially. Yeah. You go into a group class of Muay Thai, right? And it doesn't always look the same. But for example, you can go on the bag and then you'll do a round with one of the trainers. And the thing is as well, because you're a nobody in a massive class of a tourist gym, so there's just a circulation of like this.
True. Yeah, that is especially different, yeah.
They'll say 1 or 2 things to help you out, right? Or, okay, do this a little bit, but you're not really getting any attention. And that's no knock on a coach. I'd be the exact same. You've got 400 random bods keep circulating in for group classes. Everyone's not going to get higher level catered experience. It's just not. So it's just not going to happen, right? So you're not really getting much feedback on the rounds that you're getting anyway. Then you're just doing bag work. For me personally, I just don't enjoy it. Like, it's really as simple as that. Like, people can be like, yeah, but it does this and this. It's like, yeah, all valid. I just don't enjoy it as much. Shoot me,
You woke up on the wrong side of the bed today, mate. Honestly,
I need to go and have a workout or something.
Yeah. Mate, we got to hit some pads. I should go hit the heavy bag, man. Exercise your demons. Sounding like Sean Strickland.
I'm going to go around my friends, and they've got a full gym in the back of their garden. So we go and get some pad rounds in. We go and get some light sparring.
That's a luxury. That is. That's a nice thing to have.
I've been going like 2-3 times a week doing that. 3-4 times a week doing that. Yeah. Hit the bag, and then if I'm by myself, I'll just hit the bag. I'll get a good stretch in. I'll hit the bag, and then I'll just work on a few bits, and then depending on who's there, we'll do some technique, we'll do some drilling, we'll do some pads, we'll do some sparring, and then we'll just sometimes we have a little row as well, and just float through a few positions and whatnot, and just chat really about.
When's the last time you've done that
things.
then? The roles specifically, I mean.
When I say like rows, it literally just get into my guard. Let me show you this one thing that I learned
Anything
from
you picked
XYZ
up?
coach.
Out of curiosity?
Yeah,
I'm just curious,
a
because
couple
that's
of
my realm, right?
couple of things out of Turtle, just a couple of like breakdown positions from Turtle.
What, defensively or offensively?
Offensively, how to break someone down from Turtle, and then
Oh mate, that little roll into a DOS. Oh, that is, you know what I'm talking about.
And then
That's my thing right there.
I can't remember what the other one was, but yeah, just a couple of positions, right? Nothing crazy. I don't really enjoy any. I like watching and learning about jiu-jitsu, but in regards to physically doing it, I don't really
I find that so interesting because I'm the opposite.
I don't really enjoy any part of it other than going semi-live with someone and just moving through positions. I like that.
That. I find that's because I think watching jiu-jitsu is so boring. It really is, but doing it is so fun.
As much.
I love it because it feels like chess, right? Again, that's the thing everyone always says about human chess. That's how it feels to me when it's like a little skirmish, right? You're trying to outplay your opponent.
The autism.
Yeah, something like that. But watching it's like watching paint dry. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
When I say watching it, though, it's more you have to think from my perspective when I'm watching it. It's more so when I'm watching it, right? I'm on the mats. I'm on the mats with the coaches. And then they're giving the feedback, right? And I'm saying, okay, why have you done that? Why are you asking for that? What is that you're asking for? You know, so I'm getting live feedback loops, watching it live. So it's not quite sitting at home going through the flipping IBJJF tournaments.
Jesus
I
Christ.
don't do that. I don't do that at all. But
not really for you. Yeah, not really for me. Yeah, I think that's probably a good place to wrap up. I think you need to get those rounds in on the mat or on the pads, whichever one it is. This has been the MMA Creators Podcast, episode number 75, I believe, or maybe it's 76. I don't know. We always get it wrong. Anyway, this has been the MMA Creators Podcast, and we will see you again next Sunday. Have a good one.